Namaskar, Adab, Salam, Vadakkam and Sat Shri Akal. Hi guys, my name is Jayant Mundhra and welcome to my channel. In today's data deep dive, we are going to talk about Domino's India, which is basically operated by Jubilant Foodworks in India, right? So when we talk about Domino's particularly, just look at its store level data, right? Number of stores, if you think about it, the numbers are pretty stable and growing very slowly from around, you can say 1.1k levels to around 1.4k levels, 1.3k levels, right? And then pandemic happened and the company decided to basically shut down almost 100 stores and exited 7 cities out here. But since then, the growth in number of stores has been pretty rapid, and same for the cities that they are operating in. Both the numbers have basically grown by almost 40%, which is pretty fantabulous growth out here when we are talking about the scale. I mean, you are already operating almost 1300 stores, right? Pretty big numbers out there. And they have done it while maintaining the average number of stores per city between 4 to 5. You can look at the dark blue line out here. So they have maintained the number pretty stable. It is because they kind of maintain the guarantee that if you place an order with us, we'll deliver the order within 30 minutes. So that necessitates that in whatever city you operate, you basically have a certain number of stores to cater to that. I'm not saying that every city has 4 to 5 stores. Some cities will naturally have a higher number. Some will probably have 2 to 3 stores, but average it's 4 to 5 stores. So that is what we get out here. Plus, if such a big expansion in number of cities has happened, it's pretty clear the company is expanding in the beyond tier 2 territory as well. So these are the things that are very clear out here on the outset. But this is the macro level data, right? What is really happening inside the store? So just look at the revenue numbers, right? At per store level, so basically it's pretty easy. You take the overall revenue, you divide it by number of stores and you divide it by 90. 90 is basically number of days, approx number of days in a quarter. It could also be 91, but generally 90, right? So if you divide that, you get the number that average sales have pretty much always been between, you can say, not always, but for considerable amount of the past, it has actually been between 75 to 85,000 rupees. And this number was actually rising before because the number of stores was not increasing, right? But they have maintained the amount of sales between 75 to 85k a day while growing the number of stores pretty aggressively, which is actually pretty commendable. Even if we adjust the number for GST, if you look at the bottommost line out here, the numbers are pretty much maintained at the level where they were before, despite such a massive expansion. Why am I stressing on this? Because naturally, the newer outlets will take some time to get to the amount of sales that an old outlet basically does, right? Now, some might say that, okay, you have taken the new outlets and taken the average. So let us talk about the like for like numbers. Like for like is basically stores that were available, that were live 12 months before as well, right? So look at this particular dark blue line out here for which numbers are present for last 8 quarters. If these are basically like for like numbers. So even on a like for like basis, the sales have been range bound in the similar range. It's basically between, you can say 80 to 85k, something like that. It's been there, right? So numbers are range bound. An average store has been doing 75 to 85k sales since, you can say, FY18. So almost 6 years now that it is doing same amount of sales. That is something that we are very clear about, right? But when we talk of raw material expenses, the company has managed to maintain that as well at the same amount. So if you look at the raw material expenses per store, it's been between 19 to 20k ever since we look at it, right? So from FY18 onwards, whatever quarter you look at it, except for the COVID impacted period where the expenses were bound to go down, the number has been between 19 to 20k, something like that. And they have managed to do it is pretty it's pretty commendable. Why? Because if you think about it, wheat, dairy, that is cheese particularly, the prices have soared a lot. Wheat used to, a 10 kg bag of ITC Ashirwad used to cost something like 280 rupees or something almost 4 years ago. That is pre-COVID. Now it costs around 450 rupees. And same way if you think about cheese, it basically is made of milk, and milk prices have grown by almost 20% just in the last year. And overall, if you talk about the 4-year period, though it is much more, right? And yet the average raw material prices per store per day is near about the same. It is wow. And at the same time, if you also look at the average employee expenses, it has actually come down. These numbers used to be between 15, 16, 17,000 or something, and they now hover around 13, 14, 15,000 or something like that. Why has that happened? No clear reasoning available from the management on this, but my hunch is that because the company has basically, begun to process a lot of raw materials in its own manufacturing units to bring down the expenses and wastage. So the pre-processing of the raw materials does not happen in the store outlets, and if the outlets do not have to do that particular job anymore, then there is naturally a lesser need for number of headcount as well, in the number of employees as well. So that is my assertion about my assumption on why this number has begun to fall a little. But there is another thing to look at. So how come an average store is paying out 15,000 rupees a day as employee expenses? It is pretty big, right? So if you think about it, these expenses include the money given out to delivery folks as well, right? Every store does not have 7 to 8 people inside the store itself. There are also people standing outside it who are the delivery folks who take care of all the deliveries out there. So this is basically a combine of all of those expenses put together, all of those employees, including delivery folks. So what we have basically learned so far is that every store somewhat has a ceiling. It can get to 85,000, 75,000, 90,000, that range of sales. The reason may be that basically every store naturally has certain capacity that it cannot exceed. The ovens have certain capacity. There are a set number of pizzas or garlic breads that basically a store can produce. So there is a natural ceiling out there. And what is really commendable is they have been able to maintain the employee expenses as well as the raw material expenses. That is very clear. So when we think about it, all these sales, etc., that is happening, this 85,000 amount of sales, what is it really constituting of? So almost 65% of it, if you look at the numbers out here, 65% basically are delivery orders, and almost 37% are what are dining orders, where basically you place an order and eat the food there itself, right? So out of 1,000 orders that Domino's receives, 640 are delivery orders. If you think about it, out of all the 640 orders, 627 are placed online. And out of those 627 orders placed online, 595 are placed via mobiles and smartphones. Okay? Now, why does this number matter? Why have I drilled it down this way? Because if you think about it, majority of the people think that if an order is happening via mobile or smartphone, it must be happening on the Domino's app. But it is not really that way. A lot of these orders come from Zomato, Swiggy, or the web-in apps on platforms like PhonePe or Paytm, right? So on all of those orders, Domino's actually loses a bit of margin. It pays them as commission. So it is very important for Domino's to ensure that more and more of sales from regular customers happens via its own app. That is pretty important for it. And has it been working on that area? Answer is yes. But what do the numbers say? Is their work really turning out to be something material? Let us check out. So here are the numbers in terms of number of downloads that the app has got over time. It is increasing consistently, and in the FY23 Q4 itself, the app got 8.5 million new downloads. That is 85 lakh downloads. It's pretty big a number, right? But is it really translating into much, all of these downloads over time? If you think about it, the monthly active users on the app in Q4 FY23 was just 11.1 million. And of that, 8.5 million were new downloads. So just about 2 million users constituted all the past downloads. What does that tell you? And it has been happening every quarter. You can look at the numbers. Out of 9.1 MAU out here, monthly active users, 7.7 million were new downloads. So what does that tell you? That a big chunk of users, they uninstall the app or they don't use it thereafter. They just download it, don't use it, probably because they don't order pizzas as frequently, number one, or because they do not really enjoy the interface or the experience of ordering from their app. So in that case, the app is basically not really that up to the mark. It should be improved. That is probably one of the reasons. But is the company trying to address this very bad number out here? The answer is yes. And what is the company's approach to it? Company is basically building loyalty out here. Company says that it has begun a loyalty program called Cheesy Rewards. Okay? And under this Cheesy Rewards, they had a total of 2.1 million users as of Q1 FY23, it is the quarter when they basically began this particular program, right? So almost 21 lakh people, 2.1 million were inside the program in Q1 FY23, and it has been growing consistently and has gotten to 13.6 million customers. But these 13.6 million customers who are a part of the Cheesy Rewards program, they are not really a part of the MAU in a that active sense, because we can clearly see of the 11.1 million users who use the app on an average every month at least once in Q4 FY23, 8.5 million were fresh downloads. And if we do away with the 8.5 million number, 13.6 million users out here, they also share a bit of this number, right? So the older users are not really using much, number one. Secondly, even the Cheesy Rewards program is not really turning out that successful so far. That is what we get out here. So is the membership program effective so far? No. But can it turn effective? Time will tell. That is what we get out here. So what have we learned in this entire analysis so far? That basically to keep on growing its revenues, it must keep on adding new stores, because an average store has a ceiling and beyond that it cannot grow. So it has to keep on adding new stores in new locations and ensure that every store gets to that ceiling as quick as possible. That is number one. The other thing is that margins are not being impacted as much by rising food inflation, which is widely expected or assumed. Rather, it is because of probably the rapid expansion of store outlets, right? Number of stores out there, they are expanding at a crazy pace, and that demands a lot of front loading of capex, a lot of investment, and that is why the margins basically erode. That is what we learn. And as far as the digital program is concerned, to improve the margins by basically reducing the amount that goes out as commissions to different platforms, they really need to up their game in the loyalty game or the better app. They need to do something about it. Numbers show it very clearly. That is what we have learned in this entire analysis. So guys, if you like this analysis, do like the video. If you would like to see more of such data deep dives of different companies, especially listed ones, do subscribe to the channel and do hit the bell icon. And a real request, if you have any suggestions or feedbacks or any questions on the analysis, do share that in the comments below. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much.